Today's goal is 20,000 steps. If I don't make 20,000 steps, then I'm a complete failure. Morning freaks. We out here on the trails today. Mostly because if I'm out here with the backpack on and wearing terrible shoes from Kmart, I'm not at home looking at my running shoes, which means that I'm less likely to just go and do like an impulsive run. So we're out here today. Now, being an injured runner and also a physiotherapist, I think I have a lot of experience in failure and helping people get through their own failures to come out the other side even better. And so today we're going to talk about failure whilst I try to not fail on my one and only goal today, which is to do 20,000 steps. But I guess another sub goal is to not run, because another day that I don't run is another day closer to days that I can run. Okay, let's do it. And we've come to the only place that you can really come to really think through some deep philosophical shit, and that is Kangaroo Town. How good. One thing that I like to tell all of my patients is that failure is not fatal. There's always a redemption story. There's always a comeback. There's always a way back to where you were before. No matter how long it takes, and no matter how, shit your situation might or might not be, then there's always a way back. Like I've had patients in the past that have had amputations of their legs and crazy stuff like that, and they've still found a way to eventually get back to what they were doing previously. It's just taken much longer. I know that my issues and issues that you guys probably have are not as extreme as that, but it still is the same fundamental concept. I think a lot of people, when they get hurt or when something goes wrong, or like maybe a race goes wrong, they start to catastrophize and think of the worst possible outcomes. Why are my eyes watering? I'm not crying about this, I promise. I think it's just because it's cold as shit today. Tend to have the same kind of personality, which is like a personality type where they can only be happy if everything in their life is progressing in the right direction. And if things are either flatlining or going backwards, or they have a bad result, or they pick up an injury, everything basically falls apart. But what I think is really important to understand is that the only way to move forward in this situation, when you have had this big failure, is to go backwards. That is the only way forwards. Back when I played soccer when I was younger, I was just starting to get to the point where I was playing really well at like a senior level. And what happened? I broke my leg in a game. It was this one. Broke this leg in a game. I think I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And that was like the first failure in my life that actually happened to me, and I didn't know how to actually cope with it, to the point where I didn't actually want to go to the gym or do anything with my life really until my leg was better. And this was my first taste in understanding that failure is not fatal. And within 10 weeks I was back to playing, which is pretty insane, because at the time I thought I'd never get back to that, because I thought that failure was like fatal, but it's fucking not. All right, so here's a couple of things that I've done to make sure that this failure is not fatal. Well, what I used to do in the past is I would run through niggles all the time. And clearly, right now, my body is not able to do that. So as soon as this hip issue picked back up again last week, I just immediately shut it down. I'm just going to take 1 week, 2 weeks off, because it's not worth me going around and around making the same mistakes over and over, okay? That's the first thing that I did. The second thing that I did is I've just gone to the gym every single day, and I've made sure that I've been working on this hip and my core and everything else around my body, so that I don't pick up any other injuries once I actually get back to running again. There's kangaroos over there. Another failure of mine recently was always having running clothes and running shoes in my car, which is a great idea until you realize that I'm a very impulsive person, and if I have shoes right there ready to go, I'm more likely to go for a run even if I have a little niggle. So now I'm wearing crappy Kmart shoes that cost me 10 bucks or 30 bucks, whatever it ended up being, so that I don't do that. And that is, once again, addressing your failures so that they're not fatal. But what I want you guys to do is let me know in the comments what your recent failures actually are and how you're going to fix them so that they are not fatal, okay? I'm really interested to hear what you guys are going through. Hey guys, I was driving along the side of the road and I saw this sign back here and it reminded me of this book that I once read about controlling the dip. Now, what we don't want in life is to start something and continue on and just kind of plateau for a long period of time. What we actually want to see is to actually plateau for a little bit and then have a dip. And the dip is really important because what the dip does is it allows us to iron out every flaw that we have, every inconsistency that we have, and every issue that would stop us from shooting up. And so the dip is actually what we're looking for. We want to get injured and we want to have failures because it allows us to iron out every single issue that we could possibly have to become that person on the other side that's running really fast and doing really well and not being injured and things like that. We want to control that dip and continue getting better. I can't remember what book it was. It was like ages ago that I read it and it was about like business and stuff like that. It's not about running, but I'm making it about running. Control the dip. Okay, freaks, let's talk about self-sabotage. This is massive in people that have like had failures and stuff like that. What is self-sabotage? Well, it's when basically, unscientifically put, you get an injury or a race doesn't go well or your training's going bad and you decide, you know what, I'm just gonna stop sleeping properly and fuck eating well and I'm gonna gain heaps of weight and drink heaps of beers and just ruin everything that I've done, even though it was just this one little thing that I've failed in. That is huge. And like I mentioned before with the dip and controlling the dip, the only way that you control the dip and get out of it is by fixing everything else that has contributed to you getting there. And so if you fail, maybe you should double down on all of the little things like sleep and like diet and everything around that, like the strength training too, so that you can slingshot yourself out of this failure into a new standard of success. Think about that. The key with this is to only fail on something very specific and not everything all at once. If you fail at everything all at once, you have a long road to get back to where you were. But if you just dial in and focus on very specific things like all the stuff I've talked about, you're going to do so well. So that's the next thing, self-sabotage. So in short, failure is never fatal. It's always the way to actually progress. And yes, you're gonna have a big dip in there, but now we know to expect it, embrace it, and grow from it. But what we have to not do is self-sabotage. Very important. I'll see you guys tomorrow.